Welcome, everyone, to my talk about the latest developments with artworks. My name is Martin Würthner. I think most of you probably know me. I've been developing the artworks graphics application for lots and lots of years. I think since 1996, so that's quite some time. You probably know I did first present the very latest version of artworks, which is version 2.x3 at last year's Southwest show and then at Wakefield. And it has taken me quite some time to finalize this version, but today is the day when it's officially released to the world. I was not quite happy with the way it worked when I first demonstrated it, and there were a few things that really needed improving, and I'm sorry I just never got around to finding the time to do that. But finally it has happened, so I can now show you what's new in Artworks 2.x3. Now the first big improvement is one that you won't notice really, because there is new hardware around, new hardware platforms. They use a slightly different graphics system. From a technical point of view, the ordering of the colors have changed, and Artworks did not render correctly to these screen modes on these new machines, mainly the titanium and anything that is based on the IGP board. So last year I put in the work to make Artworks render correctly to these new platforms as well. So that's part of the 2.x3 release. And the other big thing that is new to this new version of Artworks is a new tool, and that's the shape builder and eraser tool. Now, if you've ever tried to draw anything creatively in Artworks that is not technical, you may have noticed that it's really simple to draw like an accurate ellipse or a rectangle. But as soon as you need to draw something with the Bezier tool, it can become rather cumbersome to drag each individual control point and edit them and edit the control handles. So supposing you wanted to draw something like a cloud, you'd be quite busy for a while dragging individual handles and so on. So I thought, wouldn't it be not much nicer if in Artworks you could do the same as in Paint? You just select a brush and you start painting with it. And that way you can create something rather cloud-like in an instant. And not only that, you can also edit it. You can just click on it, and maybe you want a bigger cloud, and it's now bigger. And since we've got two mouse buttons, there is something we need to do when you click the right-hand mouse button. Now, wouldn't it be great if you could have some kind of eraser and you just cut off things? So now you can draw and erase. So that makes it a lot easier to draw free-form shapes. It's basically what the freehand tool is for drawing lines. And I mean, that's standard Artworks 1 functionality. We've now got the shape painter for drawing all sorts of shapes. Like for instance, if you want to have something mushroomy, oops, wrong color. We've got different brush types, and we've got different sizes. So you can draw some nice white spots. And of course we don't want all of them to look exactly the same, so that's why we're not using the circle tool, we're just drawing it like that. Put that to the back. So, and oops, that was wrong. That one to the back. And we've got some incredible mushroom. Well, it still needs a bit of improvement, but as you know, every mushroom looks different anyway. So, the interesting thing in particular about the eraser is that you are not confined to erasing from just individual shapes. For instance, you've all seen this before, the famous artworks apple. I've grouped this, so it's now a single object. And now I select my shape painter, and supposing I'm a bit hungry now, I'd like to eat a bit of the apple. And of course, following international fruit eating conventions, I'll eat from the top right-hand corner. I don't know why, but it seems to be standard. So, that was quick. And oops, now I've eaten some of the leaf that didn't taste very well. But fortunately, I can bring it back because I have the other mouse button, the shape painter, and now the leaf is back. So the trick here is, of course, that the actual apple object is inside what is called a clip view, and my shape painter or eraser actually edits this clip view. So as you can see, where I've erased parts of this object, you can see the background. So this is really editing the path to which the rendering of this apple is clipped. And this does not only work for vector objects. Supposing you've got this photo here, and you want to get rid of part of this photo. Now I'll show you what I just did as silent magic in the background. This is a bitmap now. There is a new option that says apply clip view box, and that basically just applies a clip view as a rectangle. Doesn't change anything, but it allows me to edit this using the eraser. So let's get rid of this third chili. Oh no, again I've clipped off too much, but no problem. Just get it back. And as you can see, when I zoom in, my brush is still the same size. In fact, I could use a smaller brush for better accuracy, but of course now I've got more accuracy to do it here. I can cut this out. Okay, so going back to here. Well, it's still not perfect, but I think you get the idea. So in general, this is actually quite a useful tool for removing the background from bitmaps. Since we're into mushrooms today, I've got another one. Oops. Right, so again, this is a bit of work, but it's not quite as laborious and as trying to do this using the path tools. So I'm trying to trace around the outline here. As usual, if I make a mistake and cut off too much, no problem, I can bring it back using the painter. Just use the other mouse button. Once I've got the details here, I can use a larger brush to get rid of all the other background. In fact, it's easier if I go back to a different zoom factor, so I can see more of the image. Just to quickly get rid of all the background here. Oops. And now I've made a mistake. I was using the painter and not the eraser. So I actually painted an extra shape on top. Okay, never mind. Just do it again. the end of the day, we are left with just the part of the image that we wanted. So, those are just a few examples of what you can do with this new tool, which introduces a new way of creating vector graphics. It brings a bit of the user interface that we are used to from bitmap packages, photo retouching, into artworks to create vector graphics in an easier and more intuitive way. So, are there any questions about this? Yes?
Have you considered patenting that? It's a really good concept.
Patenting, it's not exactly my idea, I have to admit.
Oh, really?
So, as some of you probably know, I'm actually working for a company called Zara, who do a PC product, which is the successor to Artworks. I mean, they originally did the Artworks. And the way this shape painter and eraser looks is more or less a copy of how it looks in Zara Designer. And I thought it a cool tool, and I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice if we could have that in Artworks as well. So not my idea, but of course still my work to implement it, but no chance of a patent, unfortunately. Yes?
Can that background essentially become transparent, so you could actually have the mushroom appearing on a different bitmap?
Yes, it is actually transparent. So if I put something behind it, you can see that the original background does appear around the mushroom. So that's of course caused by editing the clipping path, because that's the whole point of having a clip view. So in fact, if I drop into outline mode, you can see the clipping path I've created here. You could have done the same with the path editor, but it was, hopefully, as you could have seen, it was much more convenient to do it that way and more intuitive. While we are looking at this, there is also a control here, a slider for accuracy. So basically, if I wanted full accuracy for drawing things, let's go back to old mode. You will see what happens here. I get loads and loads of control points, which is now very accurate. It's exactly what I've drawn, but most of the time you wouldn't want all these control points, because A, it means that it's very hard to edit this later using the ordinary Bezier controls, and secondly, you don't really want the program to reproduce any kind of shape of the hands and you've got while drawing it. So if I go to the other end and make the accuracy very low, you will see that very few control points are created. Now this is a shape that looks almost like something you would have drawn using the Bezier tool. Okay, yes.
Martin, if you were to clone it using Control K, would you be able to undo parts of the cloned image?
So you're referring to the result of this experiment here, for instance. So if I clone this mushroom, so
yeah,
this is now identical to the other one. So you could still, if you wanted to, go on erasing or bring back the background. If that's what you meant.
Yeah, yeah.
Because cloning, after all, just creates a copy of this clip view. So it copies whatever is contained inside the clip view and also the clipping path. And the same would happen here with the apple, of course. So I clone this, and it's just an identical copy. Here you can also see that you can see through whatever I cut off, and you can see what is underneath. questions? Okay, so many thanks for listening to my talk, and if you have any further questions or purchases you want to make, you can see me at my stand. Thanks.